beat the Senators 90-77. Next here is the weekly coaches interview, brought to you by the wonderful, the delicious Jumbo Donuts, where you can get a bear claw for, I think, still $1.50. I hear that people die there, though, so you can go there if you'd like. It's a 24-hour establishment. Anyway, who we have here, live actually in the Riverdale studio, is none other than the commissioner, the member of the Dynasty Trading Committee. He's also an established Dynasty board member, member of the Power Rankings Association. He is the founder and president of the Riverdale Gazette. He also is the Riverdale Gazette Twitter page beat writer, reporter. He also is the Dynasty Facebook manager, and he's also the Dynasty Podcast host. And I also believe he's a street lawyer. You guessed it, it's Coach Eric Costanza. Scooper, how we doing?
I'm doing wonderful, Coach Johnny C. Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
I had no choice, but go ahead.
Yes. I'm doing great, and I appreciate you for hosting this gig here today. I had the week off, and you're doing a great job.
Well, as I said in the intro, you weren't here in the studio at the time, but I mean, you can thank me, but I'm here against my will. But let's just get this interview under wraps, shall we?
Yes.
Alrighty. First question I'd like to ask you, Scooper, is what is your rebuttal to the argument or to the accusation that your team really isn't as good as your record shows? I mean, you're 9-4. You're definitely in the playoff hunt. I wouldn't be surprised if you make the playoffs. Don't get me wrong, but come on. I mean, you're sitting there at the draft with your thumb up your ass, for what was it, 4 or 5 rounds. Then you finally get up and you draft Mark Ingram, or what? It was Ingram, I believe.
Mark Ingram was later, a little bit later. Yeah, I think my first pick was Anquan Bolden in the 5th round.
Okay, Anquan Bolden, right?
Or Santonio Holmes. I'm sorry, it was Santonio Holmes in the 4th round. I had a 4th round pick.
All right, well, whatever. What's your rebuttal to that? What is your rebuttal to saying that your team really isn't as good as your record shows?
My rebuttal is I would agree.
Okay.
First of all, I mean, we've gone through this many times. Okay, I mean, fantasy is definitely, it has a lot of luck and a lot of destiny and matchups and gods involved with it. But you still are in control of a good amount, I think, and just because I happen to have, for the first time in friggin' 7 years, an easy schedule this year, just because you have an easy schedule doesn't mean that it's going to equivalent into wins. I mean, look at Coach Will DeYoung, for example.
Mm-hmm.
This year he has the 2nd easiest schedule in the league, and he's 1-13 or whatever. So just because you have an easy schedule doesn't mean you're automatically going to be good. You still have to manage your team. You still have to do what you need to do to win. And
right.
I feel like I've done that.
Oh, I understand, and it's a good point, but it's not just about the easy schedule that you had. That's totally fine. We've all seen coaches with easy schedules, and they either take advantage of it or they don't, or luck gets the better of them or the worst of them. It's just the fact that your draft, as I said before, you're sitting there, you're doing nothing, and you for 4 or 5 rounds, and meanwhile all the best players are being picked, and somehow you still are making something happen this year.
Well, John,
I'm just saying that's the one thing that's just most. I mean, it's surprising. It's frustrating. What gives?
I can see how it's frustrating, and to be honest with you, I'm actually a little surprised at the general consensus of the league that you guys all thought I wasn't going to be good this year. I mean, not to figure my own asshole or play with my own nips or whatnot, but
which you literally are doing right now.
Well,
just for
yeah, I meant figurative. I mean, I'm doing it physically
for the listeners, so you know.
Figuratively, I've only had one off season in 7 years, now 8 years, and It was I think it was like Dynasty 3 or something like that, and I feel like I'm confused why everyone thought, even though I had the least amount of draft picks.
That's why I have to stop you there. That's the answer you're looking for.
But look at my coaching ability. My coaching ability is right up there at the top.
Yeah, your coaching ability is great. You're easily, one of the best fantasy coaches that I've experienced in my time here in the Dynasty. But
I should be in the Hall of Fame. I'm actually a little offended.
Yeah.
That I did. I mean, I think it's probably because I'm a commissioner and obviously authority, and you can't vote in a guy who's in charge. I'm not good with people in charge, but so I think I got a little gypped that I didn't get into the Hall of Fame for era number 1. I'm not going to go through the numbers or anything like that, but I think it was pretty obvious that Phil and I, dominated that division, that era in time. I think I put my stamp on the Dynasty in those first 5 years. I didn't win a championship, but I mean, I think we're all aware that just because you didn't win a championship doesn't mean you're not one of the better, competitors. I mean, Dan Marino, Teddy Ballgame, Charles Barkley, Ken Griffey Jr. I'm not going to go on, but
Kiefer Sutherland.
Kiefer Sutherland, sure. So anyway, to sum it up, I understand that I was at the draft. I was having a great time, and it kind of got comical at certain points. People forgot I was even there, and now look at me. I'm 9-4. I'm right there, and I'm competing, and that's what all I wanted to do this year is I wanted to compete, and that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, you sure are. Well, let me ask you this: from a scale from 1 to 10.
10. Oh, okay. Sorry.
How gay are you?
10.
Scale from 1 to 10. How confident that you'll make your team will make the playoffs?
That's a great question. If you asked me a couple of weeks ago, I'd probably say 10. But now my team has been kind of going downhill a little bit. I'm gonna say 7.5.
7.5%.
7.5. I got a big game this week against the Hunters.
Game of the week.
Yeah, game of the week, I guess. I'm looking at this game as as a pretty much a playoff game right here. I've benched all my players coming off a couple of losses in a row. That's worked for me in the past. So I'm going with this route again. No one is a starter. You got to earn your way on a starter on the Riverdale Scoopers. I'm bringing Rex Grossman in this week for a tryout. Yeah, I'm not very. I mean, Vic's been a little banged up lately. I love him, and trust me, he is the most exciting player to watch when you have him on your team. But he has been a little banged up lately. I'm sure he's going to come back and do great. And Tim Tebow has been really good replacement for me, but I'm bringing in Grossman just to try him out. I got to switch things up a little bit. I got a big game ahead of me. Big game.
Well, I mean, let's talk a little bit more about this. It is the game of the week. How do you think you'll match up against the Hunters, actually?
Hunters and I have a pretty storied past. He came into the league in Dynasty 5. Him and I battled for the North Riverdale division that year. I ended up winning. We both got into the playoffs. We played each other in the first round, and he beat me. I'm still a little sad and bitter about that because I thought that was my year, but it wasn't. Since then, I think I've pretty much owned Hunters, but he's got a good team this year. We're not taking him lightly, and like I said, this is a big game for Remy. I'm looking at this as if I win, I'm in. If I win, I'm in. So I'm going balls out. Whatever I need to do to win, including cheating, obviously, then I will be doing that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, there's proof right there, just in case he meant it, people. Would it be rude to assume that you fuck and suck off guys?
Well, no. I'm offended that you wouldn't assume that I do that. It's obvious that is what I do. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
But speaking of sucking off guys, sure. I don't know if you noticed or not, but back in probably mid-season or even before that, I brought in David Givens, DG. I'm sure we all know and love him. Brought him into the Riverdale Scoopers. Um,